What's going on, guys? Welcome back. We have a big fight night, morning coming up on Saturday. Obviously, you guys know, got UFC in Saudi Arabia. Starts 6 a.m. West Coast time, 9 a.m. East Coast time. 11 fights, small sample size, not like the 13, 14 fight sample size that we're kind of used to, but it's actually nice, though. We'll probably be over around 12 noon West Coast time, 3 p.m. East Coast time. Doesn't end there, though. Then we have boxing. We have some amazing fights. David Benavidez, David Morrell, Isaac Pitbull Cruz is fighting. Stephen Fulton. Really, really, really good, just all-around combat sports night. And we got you covered everywhere. Obviously, you guys know we launched our new product, the Fight Brain. Fight Brain pretty much gave you the Hani Barcelos upset last week. We are transversing it now to see what it's got for us in boxing as well. So Fight Brain broke down 3 of the main boxing fights for Saturday night, along with this entire card. There's a couple other job responsibilities we're going to throw out Fight Brain this week as well to see how it does. So definitely come and check us out. Get all your wagers, get all your DraftKings and DFS. Full breakdowns, audio on my end, full Fight Brain breakdowns. You name it. Football's coming to an end. There's no other place you guys want to get your information for MMA or boxing or anything combat sports. We can promise you we're not going to be right all the time. We're not going to be wrong all the time. But we can promise you you're not going to get any more detailed information than you get at our site. It's not even a question. Nobody puts more work in than we do over at themadlabmma.com. So definitely go and check that out. Let's start off with this card. You know, when I initially saw, first of all, before we do start and get into the fights, I do want to throw my thoughts and prayers out to the family and the victims of the horrible helicopter and plane crash that happened last night over the Potomac River, I believe, in Washington. Terrible turn of events. I don't want to get political or talk anything about that. I don't know exactly what happened. It seemed like it could have been avoided. So hopefully we get better from this, and hopefully, like I said, I don't know the numbers as far as who lost their life. If there were any survivors, I really, really don't know. But I would be remiss not to say that my thoughts and prayers, and I wanted to voice that on this show. All right, so let's get to this card. So the early birds on the West Coast, we got to get up early. So that means there's no going out, drinking fucking Everclear and martinis and stuff like that on Friday night. We got an early day, so we got to get up early. We got to make our breakfast, protein shakes, whatever we're going to drink, and get right to it. Those on the East Coast, you guys can go out. You guys can have a couple cocktails and a couple martinis if you want them, because you don't have to be up until 9. But we're going to break down a couple of the main card on this fight card, and then I'm going to get into a little bit with the Benavidez and David Morrell fight. So when I first saw this card and I saw that it was Izzy and Imavov, I was kind of shocked because if you look at Izzy's overall body of work, this guy does not fight on Fight Night cards. His entire career, he's been on pay-per-view cards. So right away, right out of the gate, when you see Fight Night, what do you think? You're like, oh my God, Apex. They're putting Izzy in the Apex Center. And then, you know, I look and I see, okay, well, it's in Saudi Arabia. They have to give them good fights. This card is probably going to be more fun and entertaining than actually the pay-per-view card. So it made a little bit more sense for me there. But when you look at the fight itself, it's hard to get excited for this fight, right? Like, we used to get super excited for the Izzy fights when he fought Strickland, when he fought Pereira. Like, we're so used to him fighting these guys, these big-name guys, that when he fights somebody like an Imavov, who's very good, don't get me wrong, he's very, very good, but he's not that household name. He's not that guy who carries fear with him. He doesn't carry that, like, marketing ability with him. It's hard to really get excited for it. And, you know, you got to wonder, what are they doing here? What are they trying to do here? Are they trying to get a guy in Izzy who lost 3 of his last 4, but mind you, he lost to all former and current champions? Are they trying to kind of push him out a little bit? Or are they trying to get him back on the schneid? Or are they taking Imavov, who's got a little momentum now, to put that name on his resume? I don't think that's the case here. I think there are situations where the UFC will do that. They will take a bigger name that has fallen from grace. They kind of lost faith and hope in him, but he still has that big name. You're getting him at the right time. Let's throw. But Imavov's not a guy who's extremely marketable. He's not a guy that even if he becomes champion, that all of a sudden he's going to be this fan-friendly guy and everyone's going to love him. He don't have those optics. You know, he will be a guy who, if he becomes a champion, and that'll be it. Izzy still has star power. Izzy still can bring money to them. You know what I mean? Izzy still has that ability to showcase, where Imavov really doesn't. So I truly believe this is a fight where you have to give Israel Adesanya a good fighter. You can't give him a scrub. Even in a rebuilding phase for a guy like this, trying to get back into the mix of it, you can't just throw him anybody. You got to throw him a legitimate guy. You know, and Imavov is a very legitimate guy, but he's a step below of what Izzy's used of facing. You know, one thing I will say about Imavov is striking is very, very good. You know, if you watch him early on the onsets in his fights, he's very on his feet. He moves very well for the division. He's got decent speed. He's got decent pop. But as the fight goes on, he tends to slow down a little bit. You know, and Israel Adesanya is a guy who's lived in 5-round fights his entire career. He grew up in them. You know, and he's been to this place. He's been in under the bright lights. He's had the pressure. He's had everything thrown at him. I mean, look at the pressure he had against Pereira. This is a guy who he was beating in kickboxing. He gets knocked out by him in kickboxing. Then he comes to the UFC and he fights him and he gets knocked out by him again. And then he's got to go in there and he's got to face him again. Like, think about that pressure. Think about what he was going through in that situation, and he ends up slaying that dragon. So to say this guy doesn't have ice in his veins and to say he hasn't been in the most crazy situations and the most, you know, talking about your back against the wall and your reputation on the line, and does this guy really have my number or doesn't he? He's been there. Imavov really hasn't been there. You know, so this is really a situation where Izzy don't have the target on his back no more. He's not the champion no more. He doesn't have the crowd chasing him. He can fight smooth and fluently and just let his hands go and do what he does. Where Imavov, this is a huge moment for him. Izzy's the biggest step up for him in his career. 5-round fight, a lot of implications involved for him here. Implications to go to a place that he's never been to before. You know, the main event. It's a lot. This is a big deal, you know, and I'm not of the sound mind that Israel Adesanya is someone that the UFC is giving up on just yet. When you look at the Vegas line here and you look at -166, if this was a couple years ago, this would be -400. Not even a question in my mind. If you took the Izzy from a couple years ago and put him against this Imavov right now, you're looking at a -350, -400, maybe more. You know, but right now I think that Vegas is a little torn because they're not as educated as us, right? They don't, I mean, mind you, money comes in, which will move the line. But people in general, I think, are very torn because we've seen it so many times with these fighters that come in, they have a fall from grace, and then they really have a fall from grace. I don't think that's the situation here with Izzy. I don't. This is a guy who lost 3 of his last 4, yeah, but he lost to champions. He lost to the current champion, Dricus. He lost to Strickland. He lost to Pereira. Like, he's losing to champions, you know. So I'm not willing to write him off just yet. If he comes out in this fight and he looks terrible, like he looked against Strickland or something, then yeah, you know what, I'll be willing to say, you know what, he is on a downtick. But he actually looked pretty good when he fought Dricus. He got caught in the submission, but he looked good. He looked okay. He looked sharp. The Strickland fight I can't really speak of. You know, he didn't look good in that fight at all. He looked like he didn't even want to be there. So I don't know. So Vegas is probably looking at it like, well, who are we going to get here? Like, which guy are we going to get here? If we get Izzy from a couple years ago, this is a ridiculous value on Izzy. But if we don't get that guy, then this kind of makes sense. He still should win, but is he going to win? So I don't see much value on Imavov at +140. I really, really don't. I see still all the value on Izzy. I think that this fight's going to be very close until about the 4th and 5th round. I think you can kind of question yourself who won what round, and then once it gets into the 4th and 5th round, I think you're going to see Imavov slow down a little bit, and I think Izzy's going to start just utilizing his tools, going into his basket of tricks, and that 4th and 5th round where he lives, he's going to kind of run away with it. So I'm going to go Israel Adesanya. I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes it inside the distance, but I'm going to play it safe and say by decision. Next one, you got Shara Bullet versus Michael Venom Page. Another interesting fight. I don't see any value in Shara Bullet at -195. I really, really don't. I understand a lot of people like him. I understand the UFC likes him because he's the whole pirate and he's got the one eye. But you guys got to look at the business of this thing. Do you guys want a champion that can't come to the United States, that has to, the only time he fights, he's going to fight in the Middle East? He's going to fight in Saudi Arabia. He's going to fight in Abu Dhabi. Like, is that what you want? No, the UFC don't want that. They want a guy that they could pick up and they could package and they could bring him to Asia and they could bring him to America and they could bring him here. And you got to travel your champion. You know what I mean? So I don't think that the UFC was really expecting this guy to be in this kind of situation where he just can't. This is where he has to fight. Anytime there's a fight in Abu Dhabi or the Middle East, that's when you put him on this card. It's not really how you want a champion to be. You want to have a traveling champion where you can expose him to different people, and build up that fan base and get his marketing going. He is marketable. Like, I'm not saying he's not marketable. He is a marketable guy, but I think he's capped with his market. I think the whole pirate thing, it's going to lose its allure. And I got to be honest with you, he hasn't really impressed me. Don't get me wrong. That spinning back fist was absolutely, that double spinning back fist, whatever the hell you want to call it, was absolutely insane. I mean, the timing on that was ridiculous, insane, but that's one highlight reel. That's almost like Joaquin Buckley when he did the reverse kick to whatever his name is, I forget his name. Awesome, but that doesn't dictate your overall body of work. You just don't erase everything else just because he had that kick. You don't erase everything else just because he had that double spinning back fist. Great move, amazing timing. It's going to be on the highlight reels for a very long time. But that doesn't answer the rest of your questions. Like, how did he look in all those other fights before that? He almost kind of fights up or down to the level of opposition, and I'm not crazy about that. I'm not crazy about that, the way he fights. Michael Venom Page, on the other hand, I mean, I think we've seen that even though this guy's a little bit older, he still has it. He still has that ability to make you think, to make you wonder, to make you question, to make you hesitate, and to kind of freeze you. I think we've seen it, right? He has a very, and it's odd too, because not that his style is the same, but you could kind of put it on the same level. Wonder Boy Thompson. Both of these guys know how to fight without taking damage in point fight. So they can do it at a much higher age. You got Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy can still compete, and he's in his 40s. Michael Venom Page, 37 years old, younger, maybe half a decade younger than Wonder Boy. But he's up there in age, 37, you're up there in age at that point. But he could still compete because he doesn't take a ton of damage. He fights his fight. He's composed. He's sharp. He looks to point fight. So he's still very, very highly competitive, and he's very, very tricky. The thing that makes him tricky is he fights with his hands down, and he shoots from his hip. He doesn't have his hands up where he's like throwing things out where you can kind of read him. He's kind of shooting. He's hopping up and down. He's just shooting from his hip, and they come out so fast that you can't really get his timing down. So nothing that he does is very traditional. So going back to your corner with your coaches, you're not sitting there and going, well, he's doing this and he's doing that and he's doing this and this is, we have to counter that, because he gives you a look every time, after every round. He gives you a different look, and there's certain fighters you can't train for, and Michael Venom Page is one of them. So this is a fight where does Shara Bullet probably have a better technical style as far as clean technique, fundamentally sound, a little bit more stringent in his approach? Yes, he does. He throws things a little bit more down the middle, a little more straightforward, and it's a little bit more fundamentally appeasing. But Michael Venom Page, is a guy where these are the guys that give you problems. Guys like this, guys that throw these awkward ranges at you, guys from, they're taking angles. They're not going east, west, or north and south. They're jumping off these patterns, and you can't put a beat on them. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think he's going to frustrate Magomedov. I think he's going to frustrate Magomedov. I think Magomedov's going to start reaching. At that time, you start getting desperate. You start really throwing for things out of desperation. And I think Michael Venom Page is going to win a decision here, possibly. I don't think he's going to knock him out, but I think he's going to do enough to kind of play cat and mouse with him, where Shara Bullet's going to get a little he's going to get a little desperate. He's going to start getting sloppy, and he's going to start really trying to gain that momentum back. And I don't think Michael Venom Page is going to bite on it. So I'll take Michael Venom Page by decision, and I think it's going to be a big wrench in over there, because they're obviously have him the co-main event because they want him to showcase. I just think I think it's a bad matchup for him. Next fight, you got Sergey Pavlovich versus Rosenstrike. You got Pavlovich sitting at minus 300. I think that is absolutely ludicrous. If you were to bet this fight, and I'm not telling you to, and I think you shouldn't, but if you were to bet this fight, I think the value's on Rosenstrike. I am picking Pavlovich to win the fight, but I'm not confident in that, and I'm no way would I be laying minus 300 on a guy like Pavlovich. The fact of the matter is, majority of his fights are, don't get out of the first round. You have no idea what's going to happen to this guy in the third round. Rosenstrike is not a very high volume guy, but he's a guy that will stay on you. He's a guy that will put it in one gear, stay in that gear, maintain that power, maintain that efficiency. And if you start slowing down and he starts catching you with shots, he can absolutely finish you. This is what he does his entire career. So listen, Pavlovich should win this fight, but I'm not. I'll tell you one thing: if this gets into the third round and Pavlovich is looking a little gassed, it might be a live situation for Rosenstrike. So official pick's going to be Pavlovich, but I am not feeling good about it, and I don't think there's any value on him there at minus 300. Next one: Sedin Magomedov versus Lockdog Oliveira. Really good fight, interesting fight. I will say this about Said Nurmagomedov. First of all, he's not Khabib's in any relation. Just because your last name is Nurmagomedov doesn't mean that you're related to Khabib. So he's not. The thing that makes him so interesting to me, and mind you, he hasn't fought in a while, but the thing that makes him so intriguing and interesting to watch is that he's more of a striker. Like, he's known for his dynamic ability, his spinning techniques, he does things very unchained, like very, very unchained, very tricky, very unexpected. And he does a lot of it with utilizing that long, lanky frame that he has. So when you are training for a guy like him, okay, and you're training for a guy as dynamic as he is with his spinning back fists, his spinning elbows, Superman, like everything that he throws at you, you're kind of dialing in, you're kind of watching that one level. What is so deceiving about him is when you end up getting past that marker, they call it the void. When you get over that void and you crash that pocket where he can't do anything dynamic and you think you're safe, you're not, because he's yanking a ninja choke on you. He's yanking a 10-finger choke on you. He's latching you up in a guillotine. So now you got two things to worry about. You got the range to worry about when you're out in range with him. And then you got, when you cross over that void and you go into the tight pocket, into the phone booth with him, now you got to worry about ninja chokes, you got to worry about 10-finger chokes, you got to worry about guillotine chokes, you got to worry about all these nasty chokes that he has. So it makes it really, really interesting. Now, I want to make this clear. A lot of people, I like Lockdog for a few reasons. I think he's really, really tough. I think he's a super tough kid. I think he's got I think the UFC respects that, because if you look at the level of opposition this kid has fought, they kind of respect his game. But I would say the highlight of his fight game is how tough he is. He's game. He's always willing to go in there and scrap. Toughness does not unlatch a guillotine choke. Toughness does not unlatch a ninja choke. Toughness does not unlatch a 10-finger choke. You cannot tap and go to sleep, but that's not going to get you out of this situation. So is he tough? 1,000%. But when you're latched up in a ninja choke or a Darce choke or a guillotine choke and there's a minute left in a round, your carotid artery is your carotid artery. Your windpipe is your windpipe. Like, it doesn't matter how tough you are. Yeah, you're tough if you don't tap, but it doesn't make you, that doesn't help you to get out of a certain situation. So tough, 100% he's tough. Is he going to fight for your money? 1,000%. But if he crosses that void, he's got to be very, very careful. And I just don't think he's educated enough to stay out of all of Said Nurmagomedov's webs. It's either you got to pick and choose your poison with him. You either got to go in there and you got to stand in a pocket with him. Stand in range with him, and you got to worry about him throwing all these dynamic things with his range and his length. Or you get into the pocket with him, and now you got to watch all your limbs. You got to watch your neck. You got to watch it. It's a really tricky game. And the thing that makes me concerned a little bit about Said is that he hasn't been really active. So where is his timing going to be? So I just can't go against him here. I like Said Nurmagomedov. If you look at this, he's a minus 195. No, he's not minus. What am I talking about? Minus 195. He's minus 162. I still see value there. I know he hasn't fought, but I still see value at that minus 162. So I am going to go Said Nurmagomedov in that spot. And then the last fight we're going to break down is Free Siam versus Mike Davis. You guys know I'm a huge Mike Davis guy. You guys know that if you guys watch me or you have been in the Mad Lab MMA Discord and stuff like years ago, if you guys were one of the original guys, you know like how much I talk about, like anytime I say you want to watch a cracker of a fight, you watch Mike Davis versus Sadiq Yusuff on a Contender Series. Like I tell everybody that. If you want to watch a cracker of a fight where you're sitting on your couch and you can hear bones cracking, you watch that fight. It was one of the most violent fights in I would say it was the most violent fight in Contender Series. I mean, it was just nonstop, just head trauma. It was like two trains crashing together. And both of these guys didn't give in. And I've always followed Mike Davis. I always like Mike. The problem with Mike Davis is, and this is what frustrates me about him, he's such a good fighter, and he's got championship pedigree. He's just not active enough. If this guy was active, this guy can 1,000%, not even a question, be a champion. I'd probably put a bet in if they had a future prop. If he was an active fighter, if they had a future prop, will he, who will be champion in that division? Will Mike Davis be champion in that division in 2025? I might actually hit that prop and be confident about it because he's got that kind of pedigree. He's that good. Just doesn't fight enough. Once a year, once a little over a year. I'd love to see him get active. He doesn't get active. You got a guy, Free Ziam now, who's very, very young. He's been getting gradually better. He's a very slick striker. He looked great in his last fight. He looks better every fight. So this is actually a great matchup, and I think it's a more well-rounded MMA striker, full-bore MMA striker in Ziam, and a really good fucking wrestle boxer in Mike Davis. And I got to be honest with you, the damage I've seen Mike Davis take, the situations that I've seen him in, the way he fights so intelligent, the way he mixed things up from wrestling to boxing, it's really hard for me to bet against him, against anybody. So I'm going Mike Davis here. I think this fight is aligned about where it should be, minus 140, plus 120. I think either side you choose, there's value. If you're getting Ziam at plus money on the momentum that he's on, I don't hate it. And if you're laying minus 140 on a guy like Mike Davis, who has proven time and time again that he can get it done against almost anybody, he can take a beating while he's doing it, I don't mind that either. So that's a great fight. That's a really, really good fight. We got more fights on the card. If you guys want those and you want the fight brains, go to the madlabmma.com, sign up for that there. Hop in the Discord. We'll be sweating the fights all morning and all day. Plus, we have the Super Bowl. We got all our guys doing the stuff in the Super Bowl. We got our very own Johnny Mack, who made it to the top 20 guys left for the championship in the desert in Arizona, playing for $500,000. I think he's the only guy in the industry as far as content providers that is in it, and he's one of ours. He gives great DFS advice. He's actually hopping on basketball DFS now. He's been slaying basketball DFS. So you're getting all sports. You're not just getting combat sports. That's what we specialize in. But we have NFL. We have Mikey Tams doing NFL. We got J-Mac now we got Mikey Tams doing NBA. We got one of the best soccer guys in the industry, bar none, in Marangelli. Everybody's doing something. Like, we're all doing something. We still got football left, so you're getting all that for free. You just come over, sign up with us, have a good time with us, win some money, play some DFS, play some bets, and you get everything else for free. So come check us out there. One more thing that we're going to talk about before we sign off is I just want to go over one of the boxing fights, and then we're out of here. And it's a big fight. It's Benavidez versus David Morrell. A lot of people are calling this a 50-50 fight, right? They're saying, this is a 50-50 fight. I just want to pull up the odds on this real quick. Okay, so you got David Benavidez sitting. It depends on what book you're looking at, but he's anywhere between minus 185 and minus 230. And people are like, oh my God, this is a 50-50 fight. Now, it's not a 50-50 fight, okay? And this is why it's not. Is it a good fight? It's an amazing fight. This fight's an amazing fight. But you're getting a guy in David Benavidez who... you got to go back in this guy's lineage, and you got to go back in this guy's history, and you got to see where he's come from, who he's trained with. He was Triple G's training partner when he was a kid. Not to mention all the fights he's had already. He's been calling out Canelo for forever. Canelo doesn't. I don't care what anyone says. Canelo don't want to fight him. And Morrell is extremely technical, extremely talented, fast, good hands, good power. Really, really good. I mean, David Morrell is a very, Very good fighter. Now, if you take their mental experience and you take the ring time, you just take their technical abilities and you put them in the ring, then you have a 50-50 fight. Then you have a 50-50 fight. Then I will agree with you. If you just take the technical ability of it all, you take David Morrell's slick, clean, southpaw-style boxing, and then Benavidez' volume and pace and stuff like that, then yes, then you could say, yeah, 50-50. But that's not the way boxing works. That's not the way sports works. You have to take everything. You got to take experience. You got to take, strength of schedule. You got to take all that into account. And I just don't think Morrell's ready for this spot. I don't. I know a lot of people are avoiding Morrell because he's dangerous. David Morrell is a dangerous fighter. A lot of people don't want to fight him. Benavidez every time I watch him fight, I'm like, is this a fight where he's going to lose and then like the Canelo fight's completely out the window? That's what Canelo wants. I mean, that's what a lot of the Canelo backers that don't want him to fight him. That's honestly because that's how it works. You let this guy go and you give him a leash and you wait for him to lose. Then your excuse is, he lost to David Morrell. I don't got to fight him. I got to fight him for he fucking lost to David Morrell. That's how this works. So every time he does fight, I get a little bit like, is this the fight where he loses? It's not. It's not. I kind of agree with these odds. I think, like I said, I think David Morrell is a really, really good fighter. Super, super technical. Very talented. Huge upside. He's got huge upside. But at the end of the day, I just don't think he's ready for this spot right now. So I'm going Benavidez. Fight Brain's got its breakdown and how Fight Brain thinks it's going to finish. So go check that out. Then you got Brendan Figueiredo, Stephen Fulton, great fight. You got Isaac Cruz versus Angel Fierro. We got all the predictions for that on the site. So official predictions, I'm going David Benavidez. Wouldn't be shocked if he finishes it late, like a stoppage, referee stoppage. But I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to this. I just think he's going to be a little bit too much. I think he's going to have a little bit too much. Like that experience is going to start showing as the fight goes on. He's going to start wearing them down. And that's it, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will have another video up for you shortly. Like I said, madlabmma.com. Come join us.